So let me introduce our speakers to you. And as it is Aspen style, and those of you who know Aspen know how we do it, we always want to learn a little bit about our speakers, certainly from an intellectual point of view, but also a little bit from a personal point of view. So the first person I'm going to introduce to you is Anna Eikens, member of the German Parliament, CDU-CSU, and member of the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Regional Identity. And Anna, what I would like to ask you is, what makes your heart beat when you think about agriculture? What do you like about agriculture?
Thank you for the nice introduction. So when I'm thinking about agriculture, I think about going out on the fields, planning what I have to do today, and then like 1 year later, you can actually see how successful your plans were. So how well you implemented your strategies, how well your farm is going. So like see what you have done over the year, and this is what makes my heart beat faster.
Thank you so much. And one important thing I didn't ask, since we are in a transatlantic context and an American context, is it okay if we go by first names?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Perfect. Anna, the second question I wanted to ask you is, we know now what your heart makes your heart beat faster, but what keeps you up at night?
I don't know. I'm really happy. Like, I'm fine. Like I'm happy when I can go to bed and when I can sleep and when I can get my energy back for whatever is happening every day here in Berlin. So I mean there are so many crises and so much stuff going on. I just really try to keep it out of my bedroom and like go to bed, to be honest.
Okay, but that's good. That's good. We come back to all these crises going on simultaneously later on in the discussions. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's really a pleasure having you here. I also would like to introduce Karl Beer to you, also a member of the German Parliament, Allianz 90, the Greens, die Grünen, and vice chair of the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Regional Identity. So also the question to you, what makes your heart beat faster when you think about agriculture?
Well, I was studying agriculture a long time ago, and not owning any land and not being able to buy any of it, but still I was constantly thinking about how I could implement some of the things that I learned myself. So hoping that I can actually do some of that somewhere in the future is something that has kept me through those studies and still jumps at me sometimes when reading about new methods and ideas that I find in my work now in the Parliament or in an NGO before.
And where do you like to be better? Do you like to be better on the field, outside, or in the German Parliament, in the building?
I'm not usually on the fields a lot. That's not part of what I did in the past. I do now. But the question whether I want to live in Berlin or in my rural hometown or village has kept me thinking for several decades now, and I resulted in spending most of my time in the trains between the two of them.
Oh. Well, thank you so much then for joining us today, that we caught you, so to say, between and not in a train. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's also a great pleasure, and we are hopping now to the other side of the Atlantic to introduce William Hohenstein to you, Director of the Office of Energy and Environmental Policy of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Thank you so much, William, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And tell us, where are you currently sitting? Where is the department situated in Washington, D.C., so that we have a little bit of an image where you are?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm actually in my kitchen
On your
because
kitchen.
I'm having solar panels installed on my roof this afternoon, so I need to be home for that. But ordinarily, I am right downtown on 14th Street at USDA headquarters in DC.
Great, thank you so much. And also the same question to you. Agriculture, what makes your heart go faster?
Well, that's a good question. So at the moment, I mean, what really excites me is that my daughter has decided to get into agriculture. And so she grew up in the suburbs of Washington, but she's now working on an organic farm up in Massachusetts. And I get to hear stories from her about what they're harvesting that week, how many pounds of produce they're harvesting. They're doing direct marketing. So it's pretty exciting to be able to kind of get literally on the farm, I think, through my daughter.
Ah, thank you so much. You must be very proud. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure.
This is really a pleasure. It's also, I'm delighted to introduce Joschka Knut to you. He's one of our alumni from another project, and he is State Secretary of the Ministry of Energy Transition, Climate Protection, Environment and Nature in Schleswig-Holstein. And Joschka, you participated in our Laboratories of Democracy project, where we bring together state legislators from both sides of the Atlantic. And now you are Mr. Energy for Schleswig-Holstein, right?
Well, one could say so, yes. Good to see you.
It's really nice to see you too. How much do you think about agriculture?
Well, actually a lot, because Schleswig-Holstein is quite a rural state and we have a lot of agriculture here. And the interdependencies between our agricultural sector and the energy transition are quite obvious in Schleswig-Holstein. So, well, I think a lot about it. And sometimes I think back at my time as a student working on a farm in Schleswig-Holstein, especially now during harvest season. And well, that is quite a good remembrance I have there.
Mm-hmm. And you also worked a lot on transatlantic energy projects, right? When it came to shale gas?
For example, I don't know whether
LNG.
all of our participants know, but Schleswig-Holstein is one of the states which set up an energy import infrastructure in 2022, 2023. And well, that was one of the projects I was responsible for. So that was quite a deal setting up that infrastructure in that short notice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Joschka, and also bringing the hard energy perspective to the table and to the discussion. And last but not least, it's also a big pleasure to introduce Dr. Andreas Teubert to you. He is head of division of energy, bioeconomy, and renewable resources at the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and Regional Identity. I think
he unfortunately is running a bit behind, but we have his great colleague with us, Mr. Schachzik, and so he also maybe can tell us a little bit more also about exactly what department he's representing.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Schachzik, for on short notice, jumping into our discussion. This is really wonderful. Maybe I can ask you the same question. Why are you interested in agriculture? What makes your heart go faster?
Yeah, thank you, Stormy. Tillman is my first name, since we're treating us by first names. Well, it's a short introduction from my side. My name is Tilman Schachzik. I work at the same department Andreas Teubert works at. I'm the bioeconomy guy in the agriculture ministry and in the German federal government. I'm the national and international bioeconomy coordinator. I represent Germany in the G20 bioeconomy working group. And of course, the topics you were discussing are very much to the core of all the important topics we're discussing in the broader bioeconomy environment too. What makes my heart beat faster when it comes to agriculture? Well, I'm a forester by training, so and I hold a PhD in agroforestry. And probably what interests me most about agriculture, coming from the bioeconomy side, is the innovative potential. We have been doing humans have been doing agriculture for hundreds of years, thousands of years probably, and still there's so much innovation going on, from everything from the machinery, from the crops, how crops change, what kind of crops we can actually plant and harvest, but also from the production side. which is very much in the focus of my work. What can we actually do with crops that we have been harvesting for hundreds of years? What innovative things can be done out of them?
Great, thank you so much. I would now like to jump in right into the heart of the question, which the cohort this year had on its agenda: land use conflicts. So we need food, reliable supply of food and good food, and we need also energy, provision of energy. It's important also for social cohesion and justice. It's also important for the functioning of our economies and competitiveness. So how do we reconcile this? It's a big question I want to ask all of you, but this is really what we were struggling with over the past year within the cohort. And we would love to hear also what your answers are to this. And maybe I can start with Anna, with you. How do we reconcile the different needs we have in our societies?
I mean, since I'm just like half a year in the German Parliament, I might have like a really simple answer to this question, and after decades, it might get more complicated. So just for all of you who are listening, so first of all, we have to be honest with each other that we can't, like, if we want to have to use our land to make a farmer also like kind of an energy farmer, not just a food, not just for food production, we have to give them the possibilities. And since we have innovation in this field where we can use land, we should use them in a clear, structured way. So I'm from East Germany. I'm actually near. I come from Magdeburg, so I was not Magdeburg, but a small village beside Magdeburg. So I was really happy to see that your group has been to Magdeburg actually. In my area, people don't really have acceptance for solar panels on fields, since our field has super high quality. But of course, there is so much potential for rooftops. There is so much potential for fields who have lower productivity. There are other possibilities who might be more complicated in bringing them to practice, but have at least in my area, have a higher acceptance than just make it the easy way to put, as an example, solar panels on fields. So we have to be more honest there in this discussion, because since farmers needs to earn money somehow, I mean, if they wouldn't earn money with it, they wouldn't do it. This would help, because often I have the impression we are using arguments way much too easy and way too simple, and just show one side of the perspective. Today we just had a discussion about all the bioenergy development for us in Europe, for us in Germany. Same discussion there. I mean, people might be afraid we then produce too much corn, or too much corn is used in our lands. But of course, in the same at the same point, we should discuss, okay, how can we improve biodiversity? But yeah, so honest, open discussions about these topics might help to increase acceptance on both sides, and also the willingness for energy transformation at the long term, because this is why we are doing this.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for bringing in a lot of different aspects. That energy production is also an additional income source for many farmers, and that is also something we need to consider in times where it also gets tougher for farmers. William, if I may hop again to your side of the pond, land use conflicts is also something which you are thinking about. Is this reconcilable, and how do we do it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that we have a lot of experience with in the US. And so we now have over almost 25 years of experience with expanding biofuel production across the United States. We've gone from less than 3 billion gallons of ethanol production to over 17 billion gallons. And we're seeing pretty rapid expansion in biodiesel and renewable diesel as well. And it's a success story. You know, the question for me is not food versus fuel, it's food and fuel. It's really about the land. You know, how do you do this within the constraints that we have with regard to the land available? And again, looking at the US, we've been able to meet this demand, create these new markets and create these opportunities for farmers in the existing land base. And so roughly the same amount of land that was in cultivation, that was in production in 2000 is still in production in 2025. And we've done that through productivity gains. And so we've seen rapid productivity gains within corn and soybeans. And we've also seen some land shifting from one form of cultivation to another. Looking forward, that's going to be the solution as well. How do we meet future demands? It's going to be through continued productivity gains and innovation. And so we're really excited about the potential to further expand oilseed production through the use of second crops. So being able to grow more crops on the same land. So it's not a simple question of food versus fuel. It's much more, how do we meet demand through productivity gains? How do we intensify sustainably the production of commodities that are used for biofuel feedstocks within the existing land base that we have?
And William, if I may ask a follow-up question, it's not about food versus energy or fuel, food versus fuel, and it comes down to what we do with the land and which land for what. Would you make a distinction between different kinds of energy? Is something easier to integrate? Like, for example, wind turbines are easier than solar, or biofuel is easier than wind turbines? Or is there a differentiation you can make?
There certainly are differences. So again, looking at biofuel feedstocks, those feedstocks are used to produce energy, but those same feedstocks also produce animal feed and meal that is used for livestock as well, and produce other co-products. And so oftentimes when you're looking at that system, it's not simply that land is producing energy, it's also producing food as well. Wind power is compatible with agricultural productions. There is some competition with solar. There are some systems where you can integrate agriculture in. Those problems tend to be more localized, where solar comes in close to distribution systems. It can drive up land rents. It can affect farmers that are renting their land. So there are some potential conflicts there that need to be managed.
Thank you so much. I'm hopping back to our side, to Carl. Renewable energy production on also fertile land doesn't come without its controversy. And there is also quite a bit of controversy on our side of the Atlantic when it comes to solar panels, for example, but also with regard to other energies. So my question to you is the same. How do we reconcile all these different goals we have, and what do we do with the food and energy connects? I'm not going to say conflict, but connects.
Yeah, hopefully less of a conflict. Number one should be to try to reduce the demand of energy as much as possible. So not using as many energy will need less production of energy and less conflict on biomass, land, and so on. Now, looking at the development, we'll see that more and more of the fossil fuels are replaced by electricity that can be easier produced in renewable. Thus, the demand of electricity will go up no matter how much we try to save energy as well. And that has been quite a debate in Germany as well. How much energy will we need in future, and how much electricity in particular will we need in future? But looking at all of the biofuel issue, like burning biomass from agriculture in cars and machinery, I think that this should stop. There is definitely some conflict on the land and the biomass, and there is limited biomass and there is limited land. So regarding the bioenergy that comes from the use of, let's say, making gas from biomass, it's easier to integrate that into agricultural circles. And there are some ideas even to use it as a nutrition hub. But still, in Germany, we have quite a lot of it. and it is not integrated well with the rest of the renewable energies up to now. So we have to make that more flexible, integrate it better into local needs, and also the local production when the sun is shining on the day and not in the night. So perfectly, there could be biogas production, biogas burning in the night, but up to now, this hasn't happened. We need to use that more flexible. And I don't think that we can save all of the biogas production now, because it's quite an expensive way of using renewables compared to wind and solar and others. Finally, regarding electricity production on the land with solar panels, that is quite a controversy, and that creates tensions in rural areas. Not only where Anna comes from, where soil is very good, but also where I come from, where we have rather wet, steepy soils. It still is a conflict, and I think we should try to incentivize as much. Incentivize, is that an English word? Give an incentive to use marginal lands, especially in peatlands and bog lands, where we need to re-wet the lands anyways for climate reasons. So putting most of the energy production, solar production need on the land in the peatlands would solve most of the problem. And we have tried to incentivize both the combination of agricultural use and the combination with the re-wetting of the peatlands and bogs. Still, the market has been faster than our incentives, and have seen on-field solar panels in peatlands that were without the re-wetting and without the use of any of our tax and subsidies incentives, because through power purchase agreements with a car manufacturer, this landowner could earn much more than he could through our subsidies. So we have to rethink, I think, the incentives that we have in Germany at the moment, because it's not working perfectly, but we have been thinking about it a lot. And on the very last, there is more land use conflicts than just with energy. We have enough streets in Germany, and we're still building more and more and more of them, and we are losing good soils that way, and there's less discussion than about the renewable energy production that has heated up very recently only.
No, thank you so much for bringing in all those really important points. When we were both doing our study trip in Germany as well as in the United States, we also had the opportunity to visit different sites. So we visited also wind turbines. We had the opportunity to climb one. I was very happy when everybody was down again safely, but we also had the opportunity to visit different sites where solar energy was used, and some also test sites for more modern solar installations. And I have to say, I was amazed what can already be done with higher up panels, which move according to the sun and so on. So there's also a lot going on with regard to research, which might make it easier to reconcile the different land use goals. Joschka, I wanted to come to you, because when we talk about energy and also land use, we're talking about local communities. And we also heard from Karl that in local communities, some issues are controversial. So Joschka, tell us a little bit about how this is done in Schleswig-Holstein. We need the energy, we need the food production, but we also need to take care of our local communities. We need to take care, as I said earlier, of social issues, social justice issues, employment issues, also connectivity and lots of other things. So how do you do it on the local level?
Well, great question. Thank you for that, Stormy. And first of all, I guess we need to understand where we come from in Schleswig-Holstein. So in Schleswig-Holstein, roughly 63% of our land area are used for the agricultural sector. And still, we are one of the powerhouses of the energy transition in Germany. Roughly 200% of our gross electricity demand are produced by renewable energies today. And we still are scaling up the production capacity for renewable energies, wind as well as solar as bioenergy. And we see that the energy transition has a great tradition in Schleswig-Holstein, starting in the 80s, when first farmers started to set up renewable energy production capacities in the rural areas because they understood that they could earn extra money from the renewable energies. So the tradition of renewable energies is a tradition strongly linked and interlinked with our agricultural sector. Most of the huge renewable energy companies in Schleswig-Holstein nowadays come from farms. So those are former farmers who still own their farmland, who still produce agricultural products, but on the other hand are like big companies nowadays, strong in the renewable energy sector. And in Schleswig-Holstein, I guess that is one important factor for a huge support for the build up and build out of renewable energies. But we also see that the economic effects in the local areas are very important for the acceptance and the support of the setup of renewable energies production capacities. So, for example, in one of our smaller regions, it's North Friesland, it's close to the Danish border. It's a region with 150,000 people roughly living there. 50,000 people are directly invested in renewable energy capacities. So a third of our population in this area is directly benefiting from the earnings of renewable energy production. So this interlink is, besides the interlink between the renewable energy production and the agricultural sector, a huge, huge factor in our success story of the renewable energies in Schleswig-Holstein.
Thank you so much, Joschka. We also saw on our site visits that the profitability of a project very much depends on the connectivity. So we visited 2 different sites for solar energy production, and one was well, rather profitable, and it was relatively easy to set up because it was close to an energy transmission line. In the other case, that had to be built. So the last mile, so to say, from the energy production, then also to feed in energy into the grid, I mean, the unused energy on the farm, has a lot to do with whether or not it makes sense or doesn't make sense. Joschka, is this something you're thinking about in the state policy making, the last mile?
Definitely. First of all, we got to say that the setup of grid infrastructure also is a huge potential conflict between agricultural sector and the energy sector, because often the grids are crossing fields and farms, so that there needs to be negotiations between farmers and grid operators. But we do see that from an energy perspective, the setup of grid infrastructure is essential for the energy transition. Just to give you like a few numbers, Schleswig-Holstein has built roughly 1/4 of the of the transmission grid that has been built in Germany over the past decades. So 1/4 of the transmission grid was built in Schleswig-Holstein, and Schleswig-Holstein is one of the smallest states in Germany, although we are very rural. And on the other hand, in Schleswig-Holstein, with our production capacity of 200% of our energy demand, we see that while we in 2019 needed to cut down roughly 20% of our renewable energy production because we couldn't feed it into the grid, in 2024, it has only been 4%, although we increased our production capacity due to the good progress we made in the grid expansion. Within the next phase of the energy transition, we will see that we will not be able to connect every energy production capacity to the grid. We need to get more efficient. That means that we have to double use or triple use the interconnection capacities. So, for example, we need to combine battery storage systems. We need to combine them with PV infrastructure and with wind production capacity so that they can combine their feed-in capacity to more efficiently use the grid we set up. And we will need to incentivize, and that is something we work on a lot, the local use of the energy produced following the renewable energy capacities. So we will be able to provide our industrial centers in Germany with, for example, the offshore wind. but the electricity produced from our more rural, more decentralized systems, we need to use this electricity in a decentralized way as well. And therefore, we need other market incentives than we have in Germany currently. But I will not bring it to an energy market debate as we have it in Germany currently. That would be too much.
Although it is very important to talk about incentives, as we also heard from Carl, and there we discussed this also in our project. There are smart incentives and sometimes not so smart incentives, and sometimes we learn on the road which was smart and which was not so smart. And Tilman, you're nodding. Do you want to tell us a little bit about smart incentives?
So can I go on the other topic, Petra? I mean, I'm the bioeconomy guy. I'm not that much incentivizing the energy market, but I do have some thoughts on food production versus energy production, and I'm very much with what Anna said in the very beginning, that we need to have a very sincere debate, and we need to be sure or to accept that there is not one silver bullet. No easy answer to the food versus fuel production. And it is, and I'm very much with what was said by William, it is true that it's not food versus fuel only. There are other needs, feed, there's fiber needs that also come. And what Carl said, we're losing a lot of farmland, at least in Germany, to roads and cities. So reducing, on the one hand, what Carl said is extremely important, but we will still need to have a lot of energy and food. Nevertheless, we heard about the situation in Schleswig-Holstein, which is a particular one. And we know that in other parts of the world, or even in Germany, but also in other parts of the world, the situation are completely different ones. And I think we need tailored solutions for the regions, responding to the needs they have and to the resources they have, be it biomass or be it other things. The food versus fuel debate is furthermore one that plays a huge role on international level and a lot of different fora where the discussion level is very high and abstract. For example, and I think it doesn't apply to all the regions at the same time in the same way. When it comes to food production, why do we talk about food production? We do talk about food production because there's people starving in the world. Nevertheless, we think that on the one hand, if there is enough food in the world, nobody will starve anymore, which is actually not true. One example is the Brazilian example, where in the G20 negotiations we had, when we were talking about being fuel from biomass, even from primary biomass, which in Europe is not even allowed anymore, is if that is a solution. And the Brazilians say, yes, we are running our cars on bioethanol, which reduces our CO2 print significantly because we substitute fossil fuels. When we from Europe then said, well, but you need to think about food security, they would be saying, well, food security includes different aspects. It's food availability, but it's also accessibility, affordability. And these aspects are being tackled with the production of bioethanol in Brazil. Brazil, for example, produces, and I think probably the numbers for the US are comparable. I don't have them, but I've been working with Brazil for quite some time. That's why I'm using the example. They're producing 8 times the amount of food they're consuming. And they say, well, food availability isn't a problem. And on top, they are producing bioethanol and run 80% of their car fleet. So I must admit that in this context, when biomass is substituting fossil fuels, they have a point there. It might not be applicable to Europe, because in Europe we just don't have that amount of biomass, and we probably don't want to import it, which is a political decision. But here we are having debates that probably do not apply to other parts of the world. And I think being sincere to each other, explaining a little bit the situation where we are coming from, where we are in the moment, might help to understand each other a little bit better, and might maybe also, well, relieve a little bit of tension in this debate, which on that abstract level, I think doesn't help anyone.
Well, thank you so very much to bringing in this perspective as well, and leading us from the local level to the international level, and also taking a look at equity issues on the global level. I also want to bring in our audience a little bit, our participants, and one person who already wrote something in the chat, and please everybody raise your hand who wants to jump in, I can also call on you, is Larry Schultz. And he said that in the US there is strong land erosion along the Missouri and Mississippi River valleys. And the question is, can fields be adapted for producing renewable energy sources that help over time in restoring quality of the eroded soil? And while that is a specific example for the United States, I mean, we do have also cases like this in Germany and in Europe, and it's a general question. So William, you're nodding, so I would assume your answer is yes, but let's hear it from you.
Sure. Yeah. Let me just mention to the group some exciting work that we're doing within the Department of Agriculture on this very topic. So a lot of what is driving biofuel and bioenergy markets, not just in the US, but globally, or to address carbon emissions. What we're doing within the Department of Agriculture is demonstrating that the production of the feedstocks, which is a major source of the carbon emissions and the overall carbon intensity of a fuel, can be altered through conservation practices. And we've released guidance on low carbon feedstock production techniques and technologies. Things like the use of cover crops, the use of no-till, the use of fertilizer efficiency improvements. All of these things can increase soil carbon, increase water holding, and reduce nitrous oxide emissions, resulting in a feedstock that has a lower carbon intensity and a fuel that has a lower carbon intensity. And so that's important for markets in California. It's important for federal tax credits. It's important for a number of things. And the really nice thing about this is that it also creates other environmental benefits. It improves soil health. It reduces soil erosion. And so in many ways, this approach where the biofuel refiners would have an incentive to work with farmers on these conservation practices, improve the carbon intensity of their fuels, but also improve farming practices as well. It's a win-win, and it does address some of the concerns that were raised in the question.
Thank you so much, Anna and Karl. Are there also examples for this in Germany and Europe?
Do you want to start, Karl, or should I? I can just quickly start. During my summer tour, I was visiting my hometown, and I was also visiting one research institute who are actually explaining and showing me, and we kind of touched this topic already, these high solar panels which are turning with the sun. And they were actually explaining to me that with now my English is leaving me alone, but basically how they are implementing it, it's kind of also protecting soil erosion. I never heard about this before. They showed it to me. They had a really teeny tiny field, and I mean, this technology now is incredibly expensive, and I don't know how practical it is, but I was really impressed how far they were thinking, not just in terms about how to use renewable energy, but also what other aspects they have to consider, because it was the first time I've seen these. So from my point of view, I mean, there's lots of research going on, and also at least I have seen one practical example. But of course, I know that it's not practical now for it's not ready to use now. At least I never have seen it like in a farmer, but this is just my experience.
Thank you so much, Anna. Over to Karl.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. And when visiting farms as a politician, I have made myself putting them in two different baskets. There are those who tell me what they're doing and what could be possible, and then there are those who tell me what's not possible, how we're not going to do that, and how we're not going to do that. And I prefer the first group. So I usually see a lot of organic farms as a green. And they are more and more integrating like energy production as well. But there is even more a debate on agroforestry. And looking at both the agroforestry and the solar, I tend to make one point coming from an area that has greenland, most of it, and that has a lot of cows on the land. And I think looking at climate change at the moment, we will need either solar panels or trees, or both of them, to give some shades to the animals that we have on the meadows. Because when I was young, there wasn't any day more than 33 degrees in where I come from. Now we have days under 35, 36 degrees, and the sun is boiling the poor cows on the fields. So I think we need shades and more of the combination of animal production and trees and solar panels.
Thank you so much. I currently don't see any hands coming up electronically. Katja, could you please jump in if you see any hand? Yeah. Karl, did you raise your electronic hand just to check how it works? Or do you want to jump in?
No. I would like to add something to what Tilman Schachtzig just said regarding the debate on fuel production and food production. Which I think your remarks were quite helpful, and I had this debate with the ambassador of Brazil in Germany once. But looking at the German debate as an environmentalist, I cannot accept to talk about how we're going to feed the world with a lot of food production when it's about giving some of the space and some of the fields back to the environment, or losing them less intensively, but then not talk about this when it's about producing ethanol or plant oils for burning them. And we had a huge debate 2 years ago in Germany and all over the EU about giving 4% of the arable land to be more suitable for biodiversity, which was rejected by a lot of the farmers and a lot of the institutions around the farming. For we need to produce food in a world where people are starving, while in the same year, 15% of all our agricultural land, including the greenlands, was used for energy production, energy plants. And this debate shouldn't happen then. And I think we should talk about this in a more down to reality way. If we need to feed the world and produce as intensively as we can, then the idea of feeding livestock or burning fuels is making people starve. Or this problem doesn't exist, but then we can easily give some of our land back to nature to make sure that we can even feed ourselves in future.
Oh, this is, in Germany, would say Steilvorlage. This is something to discuss, and I would love to hear the other side of the Atlantic on this, William.
Yeah, it is an incredibly important topic. And I think it's worth stepping back because I think the way we would view it is that the solution to that is to improve productivity globally. Right. It's not a question of is there enough food or is there enough land to meet the food and the fuel demands of the world. It's how do we use that land effectively? And when you look at the productivity of land, say in the United States or in Europe versus other parts of the world, there's a great disparity. And so there's a huge potential to improve productivity, to improve food production globally by adopting modern agricultural practices. and improving productivity on those existing lands. That's not to say that land conversion isn't an issue and that extensification is not necessarily the way to go in terms of increasing production. I think we look at sort of the situation in Brazil with some concern. There's rapid rates of deforestation, much of which is driven by land speculation. So there are models where that increases in production are not being done in a sustainable way. The solution is to create the incentive structure within those countries to work within the land that they have to increase production through productivity improvements, and then work in places of the world that are food insecure to improve productivity.
Thank you so very much. Unfortunately, we are almost at the end of this panel discussion, and I hope that, Katja, you're going to give us a couple of more minutes, because I want to ask one last question to you, which is not so easy, and it could open up a whole new can of worms. But since we are in a transatlantic context, I do need to ask. And that is, are you happy with the transatlantic relationship currently? And if not, what can we do better? Joschka, could you start?
What could we do better? Well, actually, following probably this debate and following the last months of debate in Germany and especially the last days and weeks, I guess we sometimes, within the debate of potential conflicts and potential disadvantages following political decisions, probably we could concentrate on sometimes a bit more on what needs to be done and what benefits like most actors participating within, like in the field. Saying, for example, as we see in Schleswig-Holstein, of course there have been conflicts, a lot of conflicts between land use, renewable energies, and the people living here. But I guess we found pretty good solutions for most of the conflicts, and especially we've been able to show the people participating in this debate that on the long run and on the long run, we can find ways for most of the people to benefit from certain developments. And I guess that is what we need to show. We need to show how we can benefit from what is going on, from what we try to develop, from what we try to reach. And we don't need to show where we cannot benefit and what's going wrong. I mean, of course, we need to see what's not working, but let's talk about solutions more.
That's a good point. That we need to also in our transatlantic relationship identify the areas where we can actually work together and not only get bogged down by the conflictual areas. And you didn't name it specifically. You answered a little like a politician, Joschka, I have to say. I mean, there are some really tricky issues currently, like in the trade field and the tariffs and so on. But thank you for pointing out that there's also some blue sky on the horizon and that we can still work with each other. William, I would also like to ask you, are you happy with the transatlantic relationship currently, and what can we do better?
Yeah, I think that is what we would call a loaded question. So let me just say this, that this discussion has been very interesting and informative. I think for me, it's pointed out these areas where we do have common interests and common understanding. The challenges we have in terms of maintaining strong rural communities and rural economies and creating market opportunities for farmers. I think we share many of the same goals and objectives there. For me, the approach and the solution is dialogue, is to continue to talk and to continue to share insight and to share our experiences.
Great, thank you so much. Tillman.
Well, am I happy? Since I'm from the G20 environment, I am. Well, it was a pity that in the bioeconomy working group, the US didn't participate anymore after the first meeting, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the next G20 presidency is up to. And yeah, let's see, the cooperation has been quite fruitful in the past. I think we have many things in common, many common visions, and a good basis for further work.
So without question, there's enough to do together. And we also have to do it in international fora, such as the G20, obviously also the G7 next year, especially. Also my beloved institution, the World Trade Organization, and many other organizations, the OECD, lots to do. Carl, the same question to you. Happy with the transatlantic relationship and your recommendation? How to move forward?
Well, as an environmentalist, I have my friends everywhere and I don't accept national borders that easily. But looking at the transatlantic relationship at the moment, I see a lot of problems, and I hope that this is going to be better in future than it is developing now. I think that a lot of this is not a question of German policy, but also of the European Union's policy, and all the trade issues, for example, that's not our topic in Bundestag. It's something that Ursula von der Leyen and our colleagues in Brussels have to do. Still, the question, how do we as national parliaments and as national governments follow what's happening there, and do we pressure Ursula von der Leyen and her team to go in a certain direction, or do we keep together as Europeans, is a question that we have to look at as well. And I think that if there is any way of getting better transatlantic relations at the moment, we should, as Europeans, stick together and work through the difficult times together.
Thank you so much. And Anna?
Yeah, thank you. So I also think that it's really important to have reliable partners, especially during these times we have currently. So I think there's there is potential for improvement also for the transatlantic relationship we have currently. Nevertheless, we should use the chances to learn from each other, also to influence each other. I mean, I thought that Carl might talk about climate policy as well. Like, I would wish to have the US back on track there, but I think I speak for both of us to say this, but yeah, so room for improvement, but better than nothing.
What's I mean, very certain and very sure for us at ESPEN, and I think also for Germany as a whole, we know all our aspirations, we can't do it alone. We have to do it in Europe, but we also need our transatlantic partners for this. And the transatlantic relationship is so important to tackle the many issues we had on the agenda today, and a lot of work remains to be done. And this is why we value this exchange so much, and also bringing people together and creating new networks, and to continue the conversation. So we always see it as a starting point and not an end point, and that's important. As a little extra bonbon, I would say, I would also like to bring in Dr. Teuber, who has arrived a little while ago. And Dr. Teuber, I overlooked your hand coming up, but I would love to bring you in at the end of the discussion. So would you like to hop into our virtual panel?
Thank you. Of course, very lively, interesting discussion. And I would come back to 2 points. The one is biogas based on residues and manure. We have managed to have a biogas package and now are supporting farmers to increase their biogas production in a flexible way, and including also residues and manure for other products. So in the future, we will have the next 3 years, 3 additional gigawatt. So it's really a good size, which we are creating for the next 2 years. And we were just discussing with the Parliament about how to continue after 2027. So I think to integrate bioenergy as a flexible energy in the energy system is the future for biogas. And regarding biogas, I've seen many of these utilities and facilities which are so much integrated in the farm, also on ecological farms, so that the energy production from residues and manure, but of course including also some other resources, can even improve the productivity of that farm. And by that, it is securing food production, productivity. So I think a very good example how we can combine bioenergy with food security and other issues like carbon sequestration, which also was mentioned. And a very good example, which I also want to mention, which is much smaller, is the agroforestry example, because it's done by free will. The farmers are not forced to do it, but sometimes they are interested to do it because they have soil problems, they have erosion, they have not a good microclimate, wind, and not enough water conserved in the soils. So agroforestry can solve all these problems, and at the same time, it is a source of carbon sequestration by the roots and by the humus which is built, and the biomass, of course. But nevertheless, the farmers will not invest in agroforestry if they won't have the energy option. So you cannot use all the materials growing on agroforestry systems for building furniture or houses. A big part will always be only usable for energy production. But if you have no energy option, you will have no material option. There will be no agroforestry system. The farmer would not build up agroforestry systems, and we would not have a carbon sequestration option, which is very important. So this is also a very good example how energy production, bioenergy production, can stimulate the material production and at the same time carbon sequestration. So sorry, it's a little bit too long for the end, but I just wanted to bring this in. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. I mean, this is what our meetings are about. I mean, we also want to exchange information on best practices. We want to learn from each other. By the way, our delegation also looked at not so good practices, so not to repeat mistakes. So we really want to learn from each other. So thank you so much for coming in with these concrete examples at the end of this panel. I want to thank all the panelists for being here today with us. Anna, Karl, William, Joschka, Tillmann, and Andreas. Thank you so much for joining us today. And with this, we have another fantastic agenda point. We are going to visit a farm, and Katja is going to say something on this in a second. I also would like to take the opportunity to welcome Julia Schürer. She joined us a little bit after we started, so I couldn't point her out, but I would like to do so right now because she represents agrarheute, and agrarheute is our media partner for this event. And not only this, one of our participants also did a wonderful interview in agrarheute, and I recommend everybody to take a look at it. So thank you very much. William, and you wanted to two-finger question of...
Yeah, just very quickly, and I'm really glad that Andreas joined the conversation and raised the topic of biogas, because it is another area where there's a lot of common interest, and I think there's a lot that we could learn from the German experience. I think Germany has a long history of expanding biogas production, has been very successful in the types of digesters and the infrastructure that they've put in place. And there's, I think, a lot that the US could learn from that. I think we're expanding greatly our biogas production capacity on farm. The systems that we have tend to be producing gas for pipelines, so the gas is actually being used as natural gas rather than electricity. So some differences in our approaches, but a lot of shared interest.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope that you pick it up later on and continue this conversation. And hello, Julia. So nice to see you and that you are here today.
Sorry about that. I had some problems with the technique Zoom meeting, but now I'm in. Thanks. Thank you, Katja.
Well, thank you so very much. And with this, I hand over to Katja to introduce our virtual farm tour.
Yeah, and I don't think it requires much explanation, but we just wanted to give you a little taste of a farm visit, since we can't actually fly you all over to the United States and let you see it in person. So I will just hit play.
everyone. My name is Brianna Reed, and I'm here in Northwest Indiana. I own and operate beautiful farms. We are located in Walkerton, Indiana, about 30 minutes south of South Bend, and I am a solar grazer. Welcome to my solar site. Solar grazers. They live out here from April to November, grazing underneath the panels within the fence. They love it out here. They're protected from the wind, rain, sun, and blistering heat we get here in Northwest Indiana. They're getting a break this week. Normally it's about mid-90s Fahrenheit, but this week it's about mid-70s Fahrenheit. They enjoy being out under the arrays all the time. They look forward to coming out here in the spring, and they're sad to leave in November. Solar is truly the backbone of our farming operation, and we wouldn't be able to do farming without the solar. So solar's truly changed my life, and it's given my girls more than a purpose of just being a breeding animal and a food supply. So as we see behind me, my sheep are grazing out underneath the panels. So the sheep can go on anywhere on the solar site within the fence, whether it's under the panels like we see this fine gal grazing, whether it's running underneath the arrays or running that way down the arrays. The sheep are completely safe within the solar array. There's no risk for electrocution as long as everything's maintained well by the solar developer. We got to see my solar site earlier today, but here is where my sheep spend the rest of their time. So after they come home in November, this is where they come. So I have approximately 8 acres here fenced in for them to live. So they come home, they normally are here for about a month, 2 months before they have their babies. And when they get weaned, when the babies get weaned from the mamas go back to solar. Thank you so much for coming to my farm and my solar site. I've enjoyed spending the day with you guys. I hope to see you guys again in the future and hopefully here on the farm.
Oh, thank you. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say, Brianna was also one of the participants in our last cohort. And so she brought a lot of really interesting perspectives. She is there today. I think she's being a little shy with her video off, I saw. But thank you so much, Brianna, for sharing. And I'll hand it back to you, Stormy.
Yeah, thank you so very much. And I was just going to say that when we had our study trip to Magdeburg and Brianna participated, she was a little homesick after a while for her little sheep babies, because that's the time when they were just all coming into the world. So thank you so much, Brianna, for sharing this awesome virtual farm tour with us. And with this, we move over quickly with a little delay to our next panel discussion. And I'm very happy that we have an expert moderator for this, Eden Vardy, founder and executive director of the Farm Collect Collaborative, and also one of our participants, and also a very, very good friend of Aspen, United States, and also of the food program of the Aspen Institute. And you were an amazing help for putting together our Colorado visit, and without you, we wouldn't have seen all those high-ranking politicians. So thank you so very much for that, but also Eden for moderating the panel. And I hand over into, we put us into your hands.
Thank you, Stormy, and thank you so much for bringing us all together and for that last wonderful panel. Really appreciate everyone's time for being here today. We have a great next panel where we're going to get to discuss a little bit of the inside of the experience and what us as participants got to go through being part of this tremendous exchange. Since we're a little behind time, I'm going to jump right in. We're going to aim to make this as interactive as possible. So if questions do come up, please enter them into the chat and we'll look to get to as many of those as possible. To kick it off, I'm going to introduce our first panelist, Joel Tatum, who's the Senior Solar Specialist with American Farmland Trust. Joel, just if you want to quickly introduce yourself and let us know why you joined this forum, and if there was one thing that you would like our audience today to take away, what would that one thing be?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Joel Tatum, I'm the Senior Solar Specialist with American Farmland Trust based out of Missouri, come from an agricultural and a solar background. I was happy to be able to have the opportunity to join the cohort to learn. I've always wanted to learn more about transatlantic farming practices, and to be able to couple that with my energy career and see where the overlap lies just globally, I think was really awesome. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Joel. And if there was one thing that you would want our audience to take away today, what would that one thing be?
I think that the energy transition is a global topic. It's a global challenge, and I think we are all facing things that are not unique in our own geographies. I think that there's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of benefit that can come from sharing ideas and best practices to get us over the hump and provide, cost-effective energy, especially for agriculture, for the sake of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Joel. Our next panelist that I'd like to introduce is Sylvia Lauer. Sylvia, same question for you, if you can join us on video. What is there, if there was one thing that you want everyone to take away from your learnings as part of the forum, what would that one thing be? And if you could just tell us a little bit about you and why you joined.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Lauer. I'm from Germany, Rhineland-Palatinate, close to the French border. I'm a farmer, and why I joined the forum, I was interested how renewable energies are being implemented in the USA, what problems there exist there, and I was curious to meet people who work and live there with the same issues like we have.
Excellent. If there was one thing you would like people to take away from our work together, what would that one thing be?
I take away that I think it's very important for the exchange and with the US, and that we can learn a lot from each other, and that we can talk about the same ideas and learn from each other, and that was a big takeaway.
Thank you, Sylvia. Ben Renske, I'd like to bring you up next, if you can join us. Same question for you. If there was one thing you'd like our audience to take away, what would that one thing be from our time together? Tell us a little bit about yourself as well and why you joined this forum.
Well, good morning. Thanks to all for participating. The best way for me to describe why I joined and why I wanted to be a part of this great project is because on my farm, the most of it is in Iowa. If you draw a line straight west of Chicago and straight south of Minneapolis, I raise corn and soy there, which are, if you enjoy meat, dairy, or poultry, I grow food on that. I also farm in the Pacific Northwest in Idaho and Washington, where we grow things that are directly consumed by humans. We raise white wheat and chickpeas. But the best way for me to exemplify why I wanted to be part of this great group was imagine this situation. You're my neighbor. You're a farmer. You're good at growing food. You like to tend animals. You like to put crops in the field. Then along comes an opportunity for renewable energy, whether it be solar in this case or wind, a carbon pipeline, something like this. And they need your land. And it's put together by a very well-capitalized, well-organized developer who's done this process many, many times. And this is a very critical decision for you and your community. You want to see responsible energy developed, but it needs to be practical. It needs to be prudent for future generations to have access and use of that land. And probably in that decision for you personally at your farm, you've got to bring along state, county, and local government policy. There probably isn't too much policy on the books to help you do it. You probably start your looking for resources for your decision making with a Google search or something like that. And there's all kinds of people out there. And so when I heard about this cohort to put together sort of a codex for how to grow the body of knowledge about renewable energy, I thought this is something I really want to be part of, because renewable energy could either augment my existence and profitability and sustainability as a farmer, or it could compete with food production. And so I'm here to see wise use of the land.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. Angela, if you can join us next, same question to you. Why did you join this forum, and what is one thing you would like the audience to take away today? Oh, Angela, you're muted if you want to unmute. Okay, maybe while Angela's working on unmuting.
Yeah, now is it better?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I do also have a farmer's background, and I'm a lawyer now and a legal expert in agrivoltaics on global definitions. And I joined because I belong to a transatlantic family, so to say. I have relatives in the United States, in Denver, in California, in New York, and in Cleveland, Ohio. For me, it was besides the community benefits I might talk about later, was the dialogue was something I really took away. When Stormy asked me, I remember that in Denver, she said, well, you have to come, Angela, you have to talk to the Republican member of parliament. And I was so, oh, who? So what am I going to talk with him? Because here in Germany, we now read so much about Trump and the Republicans. And so I was like, so should I really do that? And what outcome is there going to be? And so I learned from this mission that we were on, and it was not only one Republican at the end that I talked to, that with every person that we met and that was on in the team, that there was something you really can go in detail and talk and find some kind of relation and understanding for each other. And I think that is so important that we learn, and I took away. So I'm more curious about people who even might have a different opinion than I have, even on renewable energy. But this was something I really took away, and it was so precious for me to feel more connected to everyone in the United States and even in Germany on that matter.
Thank you, Angela. If we can bring Genevieve on. And Genevieve, same question to you. Why did you join the forum? What is one thing you'd like the audience to take away today?
Hi, my name is Genevieve Byrne. I'm a professor of law at Vermont Law and Graduate School in our Institute for Energy and the Environment. And so, I was excited to join the forum because I spent a lot of time thinking about these issues and talking about them with my students. So, one of my biggest takeaways, I think, from our travel trips and our transatlantic discussions is that we're facing so many of the same issues, but may come up with really different answers. Agriculture and energy are such regional industries. And so regional long-term energy and agricultural land use planning and infrastructure planning is just so important. And, I really want to highlight, I think, we've heard from some of our energy experts within our departments and ministries of agriculture. And I just want people to come away with a sense of how important that role is. I think when we have policymakers and support staff that understand the agricultural economy really specific to their region, as well as the energy management issues specific to their region, we end up with much better policy and more innovative policy.
Thank you, Genevieve. And last but not least, Agna, if you can join, and if you can give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, why you joined this forum, and what you would like the audience to take away if there was one thing they took away today.
So, hello everyone. At first, it's so nice to see you all happy and healthy again. It's so happy to see you. So, my name is Arne Gutholzrud. I come from the middle of Germany, from Thuringia. I work here on a farm with 3,700 acres. And we have next to farmland also pig production and biogas plant, and also agrivoltaics photovoltaics on our roofs. So why I want to be a part of this forum? I think it's very important that we speak to each other, basically in the region, but also in transatlantic situations, because we all have the same challenges to solve. And what I take away from this forum is we have so many so clever people in this world, also in America, everywhere. And when we speak to each other, we have so good ideas together to bring us forward. And this is what I take it to my home. I learned so much about the thinking, the other ways of thinking to solve problems, and I'm so happy that I can be a part of this.
Yeah, as you all can see, we had a tremendously diverse viewpoint and background group that joined, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you and with the rest of our forum today to reflect on the experience that we had together. Before I jump into the next question, this question is actually for the entirety of the audience. Why are you here? What brings you to the meeting today? You can put in the chat, or if there's anything specific that you're hoping to get from this group, or to learn from the research work and the policy recommendations that we did together, please post them and we can aim to address what we can. But please bring you into the conversation. Why are you here today? What brings you to this discussion? So you can go ahead and type your answer, so we don't have time to get to everyone verbally speaking it, but you can type your answer into the chat. While we are starting to get some of those answers, Genevieve, the group identified 3 distinct subtopics to investigate particularly as part of the forum. The first was ensuring food and energy security. The second was promoting sustainable and equitable economic opportunities for producers. And the third was building integrated infrastructure for energy and agricultural production and wildlife protection. Why these subtopics? And did you find any of these subtopics more complex or nuanced than any of the others? If you can give us an overview. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the subtopics really arose out of conversations. The members of our cohort, spent hours and hours kind of identifying and discussing our specific concerns about land use conflicts between energy and agriculture. So the final subtopics are really, I think, reflective of the diverse perspectives that were represented across this process. And as Stormy noted, all of our recommendations are entirely consent-based. And so that meant that every group member had to unanimously agree on what the recommendations said. And that wasn't always easy. So these subtopics are those that the entire group felt were the most pressing to address through policy changes. All of them are complex in different ways. And I also think they're very interrelated. I think our second 2 recommendations about building integrated infrastructure and ensuring economic opportunities really build on that first topic of ensuring food and energy security. As the whole globe faces pressures from climate change and geopolitical upheaval, food and energy security is critical to our well-being. And so the more we can support policy to support our agricultural producers and build energy systems that really promote those integrated land uses, I think the stronger our chances of ensuring food and energy security over the long term.
Thank you, Genevieve. Ben, if you had to pick just one of these 3 subtopics, which one would it be and why?
Did you call me, Eden?
I did, yes.
Kindly give me my choices again.
So the 3 options are ensuring food and energy security, promoting sustainable and equitable economic opportunities for producers, and building integrated infrastructure for energy and agriculture production and wildlife protection.
It'd be a tie between the second and the third. At the moment, the food versus fuel debate, we're in oversupply of most of the grains and cotton right now, and prices are very low. So we've been able to outstrip demand. at the moment. I'd welcome more demand, whether it comes from renewable energy, from animal agriculture, or from direct consumption of the grains. But back to the social concerns, I just don't want to see our land used imprudently or for short-term gain, just to balance the books during a time like this where farming is unprofitable. And I want to see, once things get on the books as policy and laws, they're very, very difficult to change. And you build up a great infrastructure around it. So I just want to see the responsible use of land with a long-term wisdom. And so it's a tie between 2 and 3.
Thank you, Ben. Responsible land use seemed to be maybe the one thing that anchored and connected all of our discussions. So thank you for bringing that up. Sylvia, same question for you. If you had to pick one of the 3 recommendations, which would it be and why?
I would pick the food and energy security. With this recommendation, we are talking about building systems that can reliably deliver these essentials like food and energy, even during crises like climate extremes or conflicts, pandemics, or price strikes. So I think we have to ensure that we have always access to enough safe and nutritious food, energy from sustainable sources. So that's my highlight. Yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia. Joel, what surprised you the most during the conversations and exchanges in our transatlantic dialogue?
I think one of the things that surprised me was, again, kind of what I mentioned before, the similarities in the challenges in the food and energy dynamic. You know, I wrote down three words: opportunity, conflict, and confusion. I think those things all happen with regard to landowners that are trying to, and farmers that are trying to deal with this and navigate this, right? We need the energy. We need the food. How do we do this together? And it was a little, there are so many similarities on the transatlantic level, whether we're talking about wind specifically or solar or biogas, and how we use that land to balance that food and energy security.
Thank you. There was so many similarities. Agna, would you agree? Is that was some of the similarities and kind of the things that we share in common something that surprised you, or was there something else that stood out that surprised you the most?
I go absolutely with Joel. We have so many challenges in America and in Europe at the same time, the same challenges that we try to solve. And for example, water scarcity, sustainability, but also the shortage of skilled workers concern all of us equally. And so at the same time, I've found it fascinating how different the approaches and solutions can be. So I speak a lot with Ben and Joel, and also with you, Eden, about how to solve the problems. And it is so important that we go forward and take these exchanges also in transatlantic exchanges, because you and I, we have sometimes other steps to go to the to solve the problem, and we can so much learn from each other. And this is what I take it to my home, that we must speak with each other and build this network what we now have.
Thank you, Agna. So we talked about similarities, so we have so much in common. Genevieve, what were some of the differences? Was there any points during the seminar that especially stood out to you, where there was differences or conflict in coming up with decision-making opportunities?
Yes, I think some of the biggest differences came up in talking about existing policy and really getting an understanding of how, German and EU policy differs from US policy in the way that we treat long-term preservation of farmland, in the way that we are integrating or mandating renewable energy development. And so those were issues that were so interesting to learn more about with our German counterparts as the process went on.
Angela, did you agree, or did you see any other kind of big debate points or points of conflict that arose in terms of differences as we were working together?
Well, I remember that both of us, we were like sitting in the bus and we had to find the wording on community benefits. And because we couldn't agree, we couldn't find the precise adjectives or wording. And then while we were talking and discussing, I found out that you, of course, couldn't know all the regulations Germany has on community benefits. So we have a lot of community benefits regulations so that the social acceptance is really high when you have renewable energy, be it wind or solar or other energy, because there is an obliged benefit that the community has. And so we found a wording that it's not, you felt that it shouldn't be too obligatory. And then I remembered from the German legislation that it was the reason for being in the law is that it's not bribery if you give the local community some benefits. And so everybody who's reading our recommendations should read that part really in the wording, because we really thought about that, how that could be integrated in the legislation, how the community can benefit. So the social acceptance is higher. And then now I came back and I found out that even from Germany, you can learn even more, because we have the local utilities, which are really strong here. We have 800 local utilities, and they sell about 80% of the energy. And they have a really big goal now to sell not fossil fuel energy, but renewable energy. So then you even have better local acceptance, because you have local utilities selling the energy. And with that discussion, it's like in my mind now, I totally think a lot about the benefits of the renewable energy in the local communities. And I see that this kind of energy is not only clean and beautiful, but it's a democratic energy that we were thinking about. So I found that really helpful for myself. And then giving speeches around the globe, I can see that this is one big part of renewable energy, that the communities feel they want to take part and a share on the benefits, the financial benefits of the energy production. And this is something different from what we see in coal and in nuclear energy. For the first time, the local communities can participate in financial matters in the energy. And this is really something very important that we found, what we put down in our recommendations. And I have to add one more thing, if I may. And then I learned something, and I'm so happy that we went to the Denver Solar Garden. So there we saw how we can really integrated solar gardens to Denver. And the other day I heard that it's not only one solar garden producing food for the community of Denver and energy and by financial benefits, but it's already 12 solar gardens. That's at least what he's planning or already existing. I didn't find it out. But so we learned something from the United States, that it's already practiced to have good examples and pilots of solar gardens or renewable energy in communities. I think it's a very important part to me.
Thank you, Angela. So yeah, there was a tremendous amount of opportunities that I think came out of our discussion. Of course, we tried to encapsulate those opportunities in a way that was both clear, integrated, and very thoughtful and deliberate. So hopefully you captured from this conversation how deliberate the nuance of the words that we used in these policy recommendations, and how those were really driven towards something that could generate opportunities just for bettering our agriculture system and our energy system. Speaking about opportunities, Agna, what do you think are some of the greatest opportunities that came out of the work we did, or that could happen as a result of these policy recommendations?
So, in my opinion, one of the greatest opportunities that we all together see is that we must try. I think it's in the first topic what we write it down. We must try to select the right land to use renewable energy for renewable energies. For example, we was in April. We was in Magdeburg. We have high water land. It's quite a little bit critical in my eyes to produce agri-photovoltaics or solar production or solar energy in this part of Germany, because this is one of the best soils in the world, and we must try to be efficient. We must try to be efficient to produce food, and we must try to be efficient to produce energy. And when we have not so good land, wasteland, and so on, this is the right place to produce energy, and the good land is for food security. So I think this is, in my eyes, this is one of the big points that we yeah, write it down.
Thank you, Agna. Joel, any opportunities that haven't been mentioned or that you'd like to further emphasize that came out of this, especially that would be made possible as a result of these policy recommendations?
Yeah, I think two things. I think dual use agrivoltaic practice. I feel like we on both sides moved the needle a little bit with regard to opening our eyes to what the opportunities are for specific crops and what the new opportunities might be for things beyond what I would call hand harvestable crops, which is one of the goals of my some of the work that I'm doing. And then I think just realizing to Arne's point that we do need to build policy around prioritization of our lesser lands for this type of use where possible, and then where not possible, incorporate the agrivoltaic. That way we keep this farmland that we have in production.
Thank you, Joel. Let's take a couple questions from the audience. I'm gonna open up our chat here. It looks like there is a good deal of interest in job creation, in some of the overlaps and opportunities, and increased economic opportunities as a result of this. So Genevieve, if you maybe want to address anything on the job creation side. Ben also put out a job creation offer as a part of a solution here that maybe is not totally related, but connected. But before we get to Ben, Genevieve, our audience is very interested in economic opportunities and job creation. Could you speak to any of that would be made more possible or enhanced as a result of these policy recommendations?
Sure. I mean, I think I'll start with some of the risks of maybe bad policy, right? When we have energy developers that don't necessarily have the local economy, the best interests of the local economy or the local landowners in mind. Angela talked about community benefits agreements. When we can create policy that is really incentivizing use of local labor, incentivizing apprenticeship or workforce training programs, incentivizing policy that really is keeping some of those economic benefits both with the farm and with the surrounding community, I think we get, you know, much more successful energy development projects. And I think we also get a lot more community support for those projects. So I think that's a hugely important piece of policy.
Thank you, Genevieve. Ben, do you want to mention anything else on economic opportunity or job creation?
Well, I think Arnie said it best and captivated my ideas that I'm very focused on land use and land policy. But in the short term, you know, it's I have a farm at scale right now. I started out as a smallholder, as a very small farmer. And when you start out small, you're undercapitalized. You need to find revenue from every place you can. And if you do something like Bria does, you know, a young farmer like she is, that she's found a way to innovate a livestock system that incorporates voltaics, and it's just a win-win-win for everybody. This is the sort of opportunity I just want to make sure that we leave a pathway to responsibly develop.
I would like to add something. I don't know how to raise my hand here, so I just start talking. I think a very important issue is that with renewable energy on the farm and a double income, we encourage young farmers to start farming or to continue farming. And I think this is also touching the issue of job opportunities, because otherwise they might not consider continuing the farming. And I heard a number on France, it's probably the same thing in other countries, like 50% of the farmers will stop in the next 10 years because of age. And they do not have a successor. And we do have to think about that. So renewable energies and a double income is certainly like helping young farmers to start, like Brianna did, or just to continue or take over a family farm. And this is helping, giving job opportunities for them.
Thank you, Angela. So yes, but a big key takeaway here is, as a result of some of these enterprises, what I'm hearing is we can increase the chance of viability of agriculture as generations shift over. We just want to make sure we're doing it responsibly and really thinking of our land use in an integrated way. I think that really sums up the themes that we all worked on together. I hope you all take the time to read the policy recommendations in detail. We can probably learn more about how people can get access to those recommendations here in a minute. I think that rounds up our panel discussion today. Thank you so much, Stormy and Kaja, for putting us together, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Eden.
Thank you, Eden.
Thank you so much. And it was so lovely to see all of you again. I wish we could have done this in person. Katja, we have another wonderful agenda point before we wrap it up. And could you introduce this to us? I think we have another farm visit in store.
We do, and we don't want to let you go. I know the questions keep rolling in, so I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but I'd love to see how active you all are. But yes, we have one last farm visit today from our very own Seta Barnhart, who you'll hear a little bit more about her operation in just a second. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Seta Barnhart of Seatime Harvest Farms, where we operate a food resiliency program to help connect more farmers with consumers so they can have direct access to that good food grown in our region. I live here in Monticello, Florida, which is just below the Florida-Georgia line, and we grow a variety of crops here, from in the summer your tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers to your winter butternut squash and greens. We also lease out some property for friends to grow. Generally have some turmeric and some yams going in the background. And we have a few other innovative processes that we do on farm. But one of the most intriguing ones we're going to have very soon is we're going to be breaking ground for our agrivoltaic site. Agrivoltaics is solar on our farm, and that works in two ways. One is going to help reduce my overall utility costs, especially over the long course of time. And then secondly, it'll give me another way of growing specific produce and allow me to extend those seasons and get a higher yield because of the shading and the other important things that solar array will be able to do while on property. So I'm excited about what we're doing here. I'm also so grateful to the Aspen Institute Germany, but we welcome you to share more of this information as a farm consultant to just show you how these processes work and how they could bring a benefit to your farms. Set it with C-Time. We're out.
Thank you so very much. This is always so lovely. And Katja, I wish we would have more time to show more of the farms on both sides of the Atlantic. But this way, we wanted to take you along on our ride to the other side of the pond and also share some experiences with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wish we had a little bit more time, but please keep on sending us your questions, and we want to continue engaging with each other. Katja, in the beginning, when I said hello to everybody, I also introduced a cliffhanger. And I said at the end of our meeting today, we are also going to say a little bit on what is coming up in the next month for the Aspen Institute, but specifically for the program. And maybe you can give us a little bit of a preview what we are planning to do.
Yes, absolutely. So with one story closing, we open another one. And we're really excited. I mean, first of all, it's also lovely to see many of our alumni with us today from the previous cohorts. And so we'll be adding next year to our group of alumni that we've collected. That always sounds bad when you're talking about people, but that we've collected over the last 3 years. And our focus next year is going to be on animal health and well-being, and we're specifically working with the swine and poultry industries. So you heard, from our participants today, it's a huge variety of agricultural producers, but also research-focused, policy, business. So if you may have interest, or people who may have interest, please do feel free to take a look at our call for participants that we actually currently have out. The deadline is approaching quickly, so I think my colleague Hannah is going to put that in the chat as well. And we would welcome your applications. The meetings next year will be in Eastern North Carolina, based in Raleigh, and then also in Hildesheim, Germany. So we would look forward to working with you or contacts.
Yeah, and Katja, the second study trip you mentioned to Hildesheim is close to where I come from. This is Braunschweig in Niedersachsen. So I'm very much looking forward to it. And Katja, on the other side of the pond, isn't that kind of also home where we are going to?
Yeah, that's a coincidence. We didn't actually pick our home regions, but yes, North Carolina is my claimed state, so I'll be a good tour guide.
Well, thank you so much to all of you for participating. A big thank you to our cohort because we know how time intensive such a program is. And we had, I think, more than a dozen meetings with you digitally. Some of you joined us from on the fields while you did the harvesting. And then you also took time out of your busy schedule to participate in our delegation trips, study trips, and we very much appreciate this. It's wonderful. And we also want to thank to the policymakers who listen to us with open ears and who are ready to take a close look and hopefully then also implement some of our recommendations. And also a big thank you to the team at Katja for putting all of this together, and for our partners at the University of Illinois. This has been a wonderful ride, and we are going to continue the ride this year and next year with our next cohorts. And since she is the mastermind behind everything, Katja, the last word is yours before we sign off.
Yes, I can only reiterate, and I would love also to say thank you again I'll repeat again, the University of Illinois, who've been great partners, and Hannah Wilworth on their has been a huge help this year. Lena Vila from our team has also been really important for the project. And lastly, again, thanking agrarheute for your partnership on this event. And to our wonderful cohort participants, this isn't the last you'll hear from us. So once Aspen, always Aspen.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
look forward to being in touch.
Well, thank you so much. Have a good evening to all of you on this side of the pond, and have a very good day on the other side. And for all of you who still have to do harvesting, also good luck with this and good weather. So thank you so much and see you soon.